But what I wanted to tell you today, I was speaking with a pianist. She's a French pianist. We have played a lot of concerts together. And the question is that psychology and music interpretation, they don't meet very often, isn't it?
Mm.
Until now, I mean, it is a possible thing to get deeper into that thing, because you are sort of forced to name kind of psychological qualities which you have to develop.
Right.
You are forced to frame it somehow. Not in the bad sense, frame it that you can't escape anymore, but frame it to give to give some guidelines. Because it is this becomes interesting, and I would like very much to come closer to psychology as such from the point of music, and to see how it can be fruitful to both.
Mm.
Because interpretation as such is untouchable subject. It is like you are free basically to do what you want, and everybody has rights. It is like the democracy of expression. Everything is correct. I mean, I find also that everything is correct, but it depends on your growing kind of being, and what makes the difference kind of references when somebody like Bach or somebody like Beethoven would utter certain things about interpretation, or so what they had in mind, or Brahms, what they had in mind as a quality of composition. And they have said it clearly what it was, and their reference was always some kind of absolute. So it would be interesting to go into the subjects very practically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And until now, I haven't heard of such approach, and I would like just to see what it gives. But with philosophy, it is clear, and with Eastern philosophy, it becomes very clear, because there are this kind of lines set, psychological lines, like we were discussing last time about prana and about this force, which on the lower level, it is very hampered. It is very diminished. This force of this life force, which seeks a kind of fulfillment. And there are ways in yoga how you can come to a kind of liberation of this force in expression and in flow, and how this can be established through certain practices or certain concentrations, like the concentration on equanimity. So it would be interesting, because there I know what I do. Hello.
Oh, hi, Connect.
Hello.
Yeah, the problem is here, one problem, which is fundamental. I sent you the references to the intuitive, four levels of intuition according to Sri Aurobindo. It's kind of combination of his quotations from different works. I put it on our kind of forum, and you should get it because you're on the list. Yeah, I do not know whether you got it, but it is very
sort of drifting in and out. The sound is going away and coming back.
Yes, it is true.
Is it?
Okay.
I hear it also.
But I sent you the quotations of Sri Aurobindo on the 4 levels of intuition. Have you seen it?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. because if you didn't get it, that means you are neither, or maybe are not on the list. So I have to put it on the list. And there was the answer of Aparna Banerjee, who is the philosopher from Calcutta University. We know each other from previous, from these meetings and seminars. And there she says, but how would we know what is fake intuition and what is really genuine, And how can we know this thing, really? Whether it is true or not true. Who can really distinguish here on the surface of consciousness the true intuition or true inspiration? How? By what means? And she's right, there is no way to distinguish it on the surface. We can't do it. So the same as to ask monkey to judge the inspiration of the Bach, music or Shakespeare, poetry, the depth of his genuine inspiration. How monkey can do it? Cannot. Doesn't have the means. It's on perceptual, sensual level of perception. On the central level of perception, this level of consciousness cannot judge that, has no access to it, cannot come to it.
A monkey?
Yeah, monkey cannot really know the depth of Bach or Beethoven. It may feel good. Actually, monkey may feel very good from this music, even enjoy it, somehow, relax and so on. But it doesn't mean that it would really know what it means, really, for Beethoven to do it. Hi, Shakti. So monkey cannot really judge this thing. So when she asks, how can we judge by other means than having it, we cannot judge it. We have to have it. So if monkey in us can enjoy the music of Bach or Beethoven, it is because we have that level opening in us, which can come in. And we do not distinguish between the two and think that being the monkey, we can enjoy also the Beethoven music. Why I'm saying all this, it's exactly to this point. How do you know that what you know and feel is that what it is? You can't know. You have opening, you have your own inspiration. Some people, you will start arguing with people by words, they will tell you, they feel like this. And because the words are very similar in our speech, in our language, they all sound the same vocabulary, then it would sound very similar to what you say to others. For example, Sri Aurobindo uses the same language as we use, but he speaks about things far beyond we can perceive. We have to work for that opening, to build up that consciousness, but the words will be very similar. Here the same, with music is the same. There will be the same sound. Very beautiful or not very beautiful sound, but the consciousness perceiving it will be lacking or not lacking. It can be monkey enjoying it, or it can be somebody else opening to the inspiration of that kind which composer had, or even maybe lots of beyond the composer, maybe even farther than composer perceived and had inspiration from. Can you imagine that they listen, it can go even farther than the composer made his composition?
Yeah, it must.
So
sort of, it should, as we are moving in time, ahead in time. So it cannot be that what it was at that time, but it will open up to other things which were not there at that time.
Right, exactly.
It is possible.
Even this on the time scale, but even beyond time scale, it can go to the source of all sound, and from that source of all sound, see the whole creation of this composition, how it came into being, how it was determined, everything much higher than the composer himself could perceive.
Okay, but now comes the question. We were speaking about it, about the prana and the streams of prana, and how they can be detected by the consciousness if they are free and expanding in nature, or if they are distorted.
The distortion will come naturally by prana. Prana will always distort. It is.
But the thing I am asking the question because I believe that there is a way. Because once you come to the point that that it is not distortion at the end, the aim of the expression, that you have a kind of that you see eternity, let's say not eternity as such, but
Yes, you see the eternity. It's a good word. You see
in
something
anything.
beyond prana.
Yeah, in anything that that in any part of that which makes up the musical event, any. So if you are capable of doing that, then you are capable of transmitting that. It means that something of that spaceness of consciousness will be will inhabit that that vibrational thing which is there.
Your presumption is on that if prana is embodying the eternal consciousness and perception, embodying, that means becomes transparent, not distorting, then that can come through and we can perceive it. This is your presumption.
Yeah.
I propose another presumption, which is also very interesting. So we have two, we can see both now. I proposed that the prana will always distort one way or another. It's a cultural, temporal, distortion, because it's a habit, body, nervous system, some pictures, some preferences, maybe not enough food in the body, protein, I do not know, vitamin B is lacking, or anything, whatever. So it will create some distortion. And I'm saying that this distortion is not important. Why? Because there is consciousness which is perceiving the music. It sees the distortion of prana, but it is not buying it as a pure event. It is not looking at it as if it must do what it has to do in terms of higher inspiration. High inspiration stays there. Prana embodies its distortion, and the physical body and sound does its best to convey that inspiration. What I'm saying is that, as Sri Krishna says in the Gita, that the liberation of the spirit is not really the liberation of the body, of the physical instrument. The physical instrument, all the desires which all human beings, monkeys have, will be there. All the rivers of desire will fall into you like rivers into the ocean, he says, but you will stay immobile. That means you will see all the distortions, but you will not pay to them much attention. You will not give them much space. Now, no, look at this. It's a kind of interesting concept. Very interesting. That means whatever the distortion prana brings and the physical body brings, you have a consciousness to perceive its inspiration. You can do prayashchitam. You can deconstruct the distortions into the pure intuitive, inspirational event of the music. So in the worst playing, you can hear the symphony of that, magnitude. So the playing is nothing but the finger indicating towards that event. So if I am monkey, I may not perceive the event. I will hear only playing, even will not distinguish good or bad. But we are in between these worlds, not having higher, but having already lower, we start judging it, whether it is good or not. And
Yeah, I don't know.
the scale of judgment. No, no,
But
wait a minute. It's another view. There are two views. You see, your view, which is good, embodiment through the instruments, and the view which says that embodiment is only a tool. It's not really a perfect thing. You want to make it perfect. And I say it will never be perfect. I'm taking this stand for now. I believe in your view, actually, not in this one. I'm just proposing it for the sake of distinguishing.
Okay.
Your view is closer to me because it's a Vedic sacrifice, transformation of nature.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm interested in that, not in this. But this exists parallel way. It is there, kind of overlapping this one, both of them.
Yeah. So it depends. If you take this view, then you say, okay, then let's choose nirvana instead of actual working, because who cares for that what it is? I can play so badly as I want. I can see the inspiration. So let's leave it like this, because anyway I will not be able to reach that point.
Right. Yes, something like that. Not totally, but something like that.
Yeah, not totally. I understand, but practically, now this is the point. This is the question. The whole question. If we should take up the issue in this or the other way.
Right. I think the other.
And then we have to decide, and then on that build up all our proceedings.
It seemed to me just now that Vladimir, you rather looked at the point of listening and then watching the thoughts which are disturbing or something, and then deciding whether one wants to go the prana way or not. But Latso is more trying to explain the way of expressing or embodying while playing. That I don't know whether I'm right, but as I said, the impression like that.
You are absolutely right. I am judging as a listener. He is judging as a player. He wants to embody the sound in himself the most perfect way. So he's the doer here, the actor. He is the music, with his playing. He wants that thing to come and to be there, to become him, it. And I was talking that you can perceive the beauty of inspiration even if the instrument is distorting, if you have that level. This is what I was saying.
Yeah, but
Maybe
both ways are correct, no?
Both ways are correct, and both are most probably necessary for both to be.
For example, if you hear me?
Yeah?
Yes.
Sure.
You play the piano or you play violin, and better instrument it is, better tuned it is, or better quality it is, better sound is. The same to human instrument. It has to be developed technically. It has to have good fingers. It has to have a good ear, good vision, everything. So in this case, he can perceive the real music. And inspiration is the first, of course, but work is another one. And also here we can add motivation to reach somewhere, first inspiration, and plus karma yoga. So you work on your instrument. So this depends how high you're looking. You're not looking at your instrument, all the time, it's not working well. I have to have this power and strength to be able to do, and we do not proceed enough forward if we don't have the main thing where we want to reach with this instrument. I think two sides are necessary, and first is interest to reach somewhere which motivates this instrument to be perfected. That's what I think.
Yeah. It's clear.
But you know, Shakti, even if you know your instrument perfectly, it doesn't help you. Because it is such a damn thing that if you know the perfection, you will be not satisfied with it, because it will not satisfy the other parts which you didn't perfect. It will not satisfy a kind of this integrality of your psychology. this integrality, this thing between your mind and between your feelings, between your emotions and between your body, that all of it comes together and speaks the same language. And this is difficult. So many people, they practice this instrument from morning to night for 12 hours a day. They make a real sacrifice, and they can do it. But what will they do at the end? They can play anyone else's interpretation, but they don't have their own.
Yep.
So this one is the difficulty. That's
Yeah.
why that if you have terms where you grow on all levels, you have to know how to use your mind, you have to know how to use your emotions, and how not to use your emotions, how not to use your mind. Then you can come to a kind of equilibrium where suddenly I was speaking to Vladimir lately about prana, and I had an experience when I came back, which was showing me something. And it was that I was seeing these streams which are there in the body, in the being. And I was so tired that I got like cramps in the stomach and everything. So I lay down, and I was completely detached from that what was happening. So I didn't care less if it was hurting or if not, if I was feeling good or bad, didn't matter. But I had in mind this watching these energies and these flows. And then I saw the knots where they were hampered or where they were squeezed. And that was where they started hurting. And what I did, I just watched it. And by watching, they felt like watched. And this body, as if it was a friend or a child, and it started looking towards me and said, okay, I give up. Now, it's fine. And it let go. And after 5 minutes, I was perfectly all right. Now, what happened was a fantastic thing, that suddenly an idea came, stupid idea, like, did I close the door? And this idea I felt in these streams because they were so clear and so smooth, as iron rods which you hold inside of streams, and they created again a lot of disorder. Now, if I take this as a picture for an execution of an instrument, how far this wrong ideas disturb the flows. So, as if this mind, as if there is a mind inside of the flow itself, which knows where it is flowing, it knows this direction, it knows also where it is heading to, not only in the bodily sense, but also in the psychological sense. Now, either the mind is still and is just observing these flows, and by observing, it knows where it is going and is supporting the flow, or by wrong ideas, it disturbs the whole thing. And it creates disorders. So this kind of thing is very complex, and it is very kind of intimate thing in the moment, which is very difficult to grasp and very difficult to talk about. But I believe that it can be a very good laboratory for this kind of explorations.
Yeah, now imagine for a second, may I say a very interesting thing, that this rod, as you said, came in, not rod, but other rod, and it disturbed the flow of your kind of smooth kind of perception of things. And this influenced your playing the music, yes? It influenced you. You got scared, or you got some thought. Some thought can disturb you to the extent that you can stop the flow. The flow will stop. There was anecdote with Gandhiji in his biography, when he said that he heard this anecdote about someone in Parliament of Britain speaking, that he started, "I conceive," and then he said, second time, "I conceive," and he didn't have yet formulated thought. And the third time he said, "I conceive," and there was a remark from the group of people saying, "Gentleman conceived twice but didn't bring anything to birth." And that was an anecdote in the Parliament. So he conceived twice. But this Gandhiji started his public speech once, "I conceive," and he remembered the anecdote. He writes about it. And he was completely blank. There was no thought, no word coming to him. He already knew that he is totally finished. This is the disturbance you are talking about. It can really change the whole direction and smoothness and preparation, and music can be distorted. But now imagine for a second that not you are disturbed, but listener. You are playing smoothly, totally, perfectly. Everything is good with you. You gave fully yourself to this impersonal embodiment of music and sound. But the listener sits there and he gets some wrong thought. He remembers something, he didn't close the door. Whatever. What will happen then?
It's better he goes to close the door. He goes home
He gets up and goes out from the hall, and you see him, and you start playing something else altogether. You see him getting up and getting out, and you think, "Oh, he is not happy," or whatever. You see that it's much more complex. You may be perfect, but in music which is can be wrongly perceived, or I'm saying opposite way, that other my picture. You play wrong everything, but the person who perceives the music sits there, is totally tuned to the higher composition and gets out of it everything. And this was my question to some singer, Indian singer, and I asked him, "Do you always sing so good that you are totally inspired and then it works?" He said, "No, I'm sometimes doing it very automatically, mechanically. But I say it may influence me very deeply," because he said, "Yes, it doesn't depend on my perception. My perception can be free from the play, from the singing. I can be ready for it. And I can draw from it everything, much more than a person who plays."
Yeah, there are also many sadhus, that they pretend to be very, very high illumined,
Yes,
and everybody believes them.
exactly. Or there are crooks, and you can read the truth out of newspapers if you are deeply tuned to the highest truth. Or you can find nothing in the best, writing of Sri Aurobindo, or reading his Savitri, and can feel nothing about it. So it is all on. It all depends on perception, whether you are ready to tune to that higher opening or not, whether you are monkey or you are the intuitive thinker. So where are you in this game? It's in the perception realm, because that was Gunhild was mentioning, that I'm speaking about hearing and not about playing music. It's kind of interesting that these two which we determined at the beginning are useful now. We can operate within two systems without.
But doesn't that show also some sort of weakness in scenario? For example, you can be an amazing performer, and yet when the audience is very stressed, for example, you can work so hard and be a perfect interpreter and put your heart and soul into your playing of the piano or instrument, and yet a very distressed performance audience will give you still bad marks for it. You know, so it's really, as some of you said, it's very much in the perception of things. You know, what people make of it and how they feel at the very moment, and that is influenced by so many influences. Isn't it?
Right.
I'm just thinking it could mean that a very mediocre performer actually, because the audience is happy, gets good marks, or the other way around, doesn't it?
Yeah, hi Richard and Julia. How are you?
Hello. Sorry we're late.
Hello.
Better to be late than to be delayed.
Yeah, I mean, this is a question which I don't really want to address, because we are looking for some guidelines, something which makes us reveal at least the way to something above this this mess we are in, this not understanding. So if you then understand that what someone else is doing or not, it is not for that performer, it is really not of importance. And naturally, you can play for monkeys and you can do very well, and they will not. I don't quite.
You don't get the point, yeah?
No, I am not quite interested in it.
Okay, that's another
because, yeah, because we know that there are different states of consciousness, and that there are people that go to with a certain expectation to see someone, which is then dependent on that how they write and how famous is this guy. So when he was in all the newspapers around the world, and yes, you must go to see him. He's incredible, only because he has such a value of a newspaper. Fine, I mean that is one thing. If you go to the psychiatrist, you want to get healed of something, then you go with another expectation. Now, we have to be clear of what kind of expectation we have, or what kind of not expectation we have in this realm, what we are talking to you now, and it is the integral consciousness.
Did you notice that lowering expectation is always helping to make a better, deeper, more sincere performance?
Lowering what?
Expectation at the beginning.
Yes, I mean, this is about equanimity.
Right.
And I believe that we have started to work on it. What it is, this equanimity, and it is a whole process of things. It is a subject which has to be studied for this one who is listening, who is performing. Because basically, you neither know who you are. I mean, I know that I am this and this in the passport, but who I am in the sense of expressing something, and I don't know. Now, when Sri Aurobindo speaks about equality, he says that we have to grow to the likeness of the nature, of the law, of the being, of the divine. So we have to be like, we have to become like the divine is. Whatever kind of imagine we have of the divine, but this must be the quality. And one of the first qualities that we find is perfect equality. Now try to do that. And try on behalf of that to express something. Then you really don't care about your audience. I mean, you care in as far as they are the same as you are. You recognize the sameness in the audience as in you, and when you play out of that oneness in your feeling, in your perception, then if you reach, you will reach. If you don't reach, you don't reach. It will be the same for you. And I find, for example, this one is a psychological action which you have first to learn. And Sri Aurobindo speaks of it very clearly in this in this text, in the synthesis of yoga. And we could spend not one workshop and not 1 year, but the whole life on this to make it become visible and to make it become active in our doings. And just he says that the first step is endurance. So you have to endure all that stuff which is being thrown. You see the material of the music, and it comes on you because you are playing it, and you have to endure all that stuff that you are throwing at it, and putting it into stuff that you don't want to. And already this one is a difficult action. Now, that's why I was talking about these directions, because in the directions you find something to lean on where you start relaxing. When I was saying that I was watching these streams, I could relax because there was a central positioning within myself, which was stable, which was completely detached of that streams, which was not going to plunge and not going to suffer with them. And on behalf of that central vision, this thing could relax. Now, this is a central thing that we have to, in order to relax, you have to hold. If you don't hold, you will, even physically, if you don't know how to hold, your whole tension, the whole tension of the arm and of the being will come. If you know which lines to hold, it is not a material thing. It is a thing that you are holding with your capacity of awareness. And once you start holding it, the muscles themselves, they say, aha, okay, it is there where I have to go. And they start organizing themselves in such a way that it becomes a stability even in the muscles. And this doesn't happen. What happens is that the muscle tries to hold on itself. And once it starts trying to hold on itself, it doesn't find anything to relax, and it gets into a tension. And this is even in psychological relaxation. You say, I believe in God. Okay, I go to pray to the church. They will help me. Oh my God, I have this and this. Oh God, please do that. Yes? You can't relax like that. You are always under tension. The next thing
Can
is...
I say something?
Yeah.
Yeah. You're speaking still about the instrument and organization and clearness and all the nature, whichever has to be prepared, which we call yoga. We work on ourselves, on our instrument, how to be equal, how to be pure, how to be centered, how to be open, how to be this. It's all instrument. It's good piano or good violin still. But there is something within us which motivates us to do this work. And that one is priority, basically, because whenever you touch one gest or piece of music which was written somehow, it was an experience of the composer. So what we are looking for is to have that experience for our own. If there is this intention to live again something new and fresh and alive every time we play the same piece, then the success is going to happen. And that resonates in the public, which we were talking about the beauty and resonation, about vibration, when there is something coming, feedback from listener. So I think this is two poles are very important. And we should distinguish the two things. It's the instrument which we are working on. It's our being, which is going to perform. And that thing which motivates us to do that. We see clearly, then we can proceed. And it is not to work 12 hours on instrument a day, because it's useless, as you said. We have to have a balance. We have to be motivated truly to do that. That's what I see from your.
No, you see, what I'm talking here about, it is very concrete. I mean, it is in time. It is that second. It is that second where consciousness is, and what happens if it is there. I'm not talking about anything else, because we have global issues, yes, and they are all fine. But what happens in that very second that you are there, if you exercise this dissociation between you and between that what is happening, and how your dissociation, it leads to a kind of witnessing of the thing which doesn't belong anymore to you. You don't want to make it neither beautiful nor ugly. You are not interested in anything but to give it a hold on all the levels of the being. In the mind, it will be this direction. In the body, it will follow that direction. In the flow, it will start. You will start seeing these things and whatnot. You will start seeing the oneness of the body in organized around that what you see, whatever it is. Now, I was there just, the second is the indifference. The first one was endurance. You have to endure the contact. The second is you have to become indifferent to it, as if it was not belonging to you anymore. And the third one is submission, says Sri Aurobindo. So you submit to become a being which you don't even know who you are. And this one, for example, it is an example. There are a lot more. I mean, we can go inside of it in books and whatnot. But if you take only these three, you have enough work on a piece to see that it happens consequently from the beginning to the end. What then comes out, the question, how this concept will change your interpretation. So this one was all that stuff I wanted to tell.
There's just one thing I wanted to mention, because I listened to what you said last time. And what I really was fascinated by, and I think it fits in with what we're saying, is what you said was, it starts with being, then it leaves a place for the wideness, as if he was continuously seeing something in the space that he creates with sound. And it seems to me like when you're talking about endurance, indifference, and submission, and in that second, you're also, what you were saying what I really was excited about what you said last time, was that you're also, in a way, in this differentiation that you make between your beingness and the playing of the instrument, that you're also creating a space of wideness for something more, for a connection.
Yes, you see, we have talked about this perfection of the instruments, maybe. If not, we have talked about it before in these sessions we had in Auroville. And the psychic is witness. It is love. It is tejas, it is vigor, and it is faith. Now, even on the psychological level, if you take this one, then you widen, because the sweetness reaches all over. This vigor, it is in that the being asserts itself. It creates an anchor within what you do. You have the right to be, and this right to be, it is your touch, and this is defined. And because it becomes a conscious touch, it has a conscious line, and it has a conscious infinity in this line. We are not looking at these small things, but these small things will get somehow will get a kind of mechanism, a kind of magnetism of this line which you are perceiving in your, it is not even image. It is that you cannot make out the end of yourself. This is, if you try to describe it, you can describe the end of your finger, okay, fine. But the consciousness is not finished there. You are touching things, you are sitting on the ground, and you can't make out the end of your sitting, because if you take away the earth, then you don't sit anymore anywhere. So you are linked basically in your visions and with everything to everything. And even as a musician, there are the walls and there are the spaces. I believe that we are spaces and rivers and whatnot. Immediately. And if they are not finished, if they are not, our emotionality in music is we make an object of our emotions somewhere near us. Oh, I love him so much, and this is so beautiful, and we don't reach there with our being into that expression of that which is the far of ourselves. But we see in our expression until now, what I have heard, always the far as a kind of dream world, as a kind of something we reach then when the time comes. I don't know if I make my point clear.
What is it? What is your point?
But the point is that that we have to express that what we are truly, and that what we truly are is not finite. And that what we truly are is in unison with everything else, and there are no these borders, but I do it like this and I do it like that. And it is a loving thing which is one with the rest. If we don't notice it, and if we don't express it, well then don't be. We are in a small box, no? The thing is that I believe that in music something will happen, because music has not been touched by any progress last 100 years. We are always swimming in the same thing. What concerns interpretation? What concerns composition, we have reached incredible heights as humanity. Really beautiful things. And I believe that we have to come to the same thing as a science comes to the same thing. That we look from a point of view without just recognizing the same wonder.
But is science not all about trying to be objective, whereas in music it's all about subjectivity? It's it's you being in the flow with your instrument, with your soul, living the beauty of the very moment, and whatever the individuals in the audience, how they resonate and what they experience through the music that they hear and feel in the room. So that's, for me, this is all about the subjective experience, and whereby science, I think really should struggle more with their idea that soul is being obliterated, really.
Yeah, and this is exactly my question. Is it possible that we become objective in our subjectivity?
Right.
That when we meet the beauty in expression, we are all very happy and we recognize the same vastness and the same beauty in it?
You see,
So is it an object, or is it something?
Yeah, Rob, please, you were saying.
I don't know, it's the same one. I think, we experience something, we may experience beauty, But when you say we all experience the same, I think we are far too much individuals with all our baggage, all our expectations, to be really able to all feel the same or experience the same. Maybe that's my point of struggle with it.
I don't think I will experience this. Yeah, please go ahead.
I'm just thinking about the subject that we were covering in January and February regarding objectivity and subjectivity, and we did hear and see quite a systematic exploration of this question of subjectivity and objectivity, and hasn't been thoroughly examined and understood. In fact, dissolving the difference between subjectivity and objectivity has been preoccupying the higher mind for quite some time. In a finite sense, in philosophy for the last 150 years or so, that has been a very strong focus. And so a lot has been said about overcoming this difference. When you describe being in a consciousness that is not focusing on the object as something different from you, then you're elevating your consciousness in a way that aligns yourself with the force of the consciousness itself, and this is known as the will, the universal will to be, and in that being, you are not your mental, small, perceptual self anymore. You're in a field of force that is universal, and there it's nice to hear you speaking about interpretation, because for a couple of years we were pestering you to speak about interpretation, and it was not a subject that was so clear before. And I think it's remarkable that you're now, especially last week, formulating the process of interpretation very clearly. And it's happening when your consciousness and the force of expression is more than the small mind is capable of. So you're actually elevating yourself into a realm of consciousness and force, which is actually the subject of Sri Aurobindo's yoga all the time. And that consciousness and force is universal and impersonal and creative, quite in its own nature. It is that. You do a lot of preparation to get to that point, but when you're there, then experience consciousness and force as being something that is it is the whole. It is in everything, and everything is in that. So then you will have the energy to express this flow of creativity. It's, it's an ideal but quite achievable state to be in.
Yeah, I believe that it is very much achievable. It is not far for anyone. And I believe that once you start operating on this, it's not so. Usually these schools are very secretive. They have their secrets and their rules and their whatnot. But this one is it is the essential thing. Once you start watching the essential thing, you watch the universal thing. And
it reminds me of this what Sraubindo says about the perfect instrument. When the instrument becomes perfect in the hands of God, so to say, it doesn't ask for something, to be in this way or that way, to express this or that. It just surrenders totally to the will of the master. And in this sense, it is very close to this. It's a Shaivik vision, by the way, of embodiment of everything, this creation from the master being his perfect instrument, and not to ask anything for oneself. There is no oneself here in the terms of one who perceives and enjoys the music, and from there he will do it, as Shakti was describing. That there is a preceptor, and this is Vaishnavic way, where the psychic will perceive and enjoy the music. And from that joy, it will play more of its own, not of the masters. And that is interesting because there are two views. One is Shaivik and another is Vaishnavic, both valid and both coexisting in one being. One is an expression of your individual enjoyment and appreciation and development of that music, of that kind, interpreting music rather than embodying it as Shaiva.
It's nice. It was nice to hear you last week move towards a union of these two perspectives, because it's in an integral yogic consciousness, these are actually two planes or realities or aspects of that consciousness. They're simultaneously separate. I mean, they're one, but they're different perspectives on the flow. There's that one which is still, and there's that one which is dynamic. And when that stillness and that dynamism are perfectly aligned with each other, then you have this perception of the will and force of the object, which is the subject. It's the self. And this enables someone like Latso, who has a total mastery of the instrument, to then allow that instrument to express something which is in itself an energy and a quality of existence, quite independent of any individual momentary performer or seer or hearer. It has an eternal potential, and someone has grasped that at some point and framed it as music or framed it as poetry. And so then it's possible to access the thing itself in a dimension which is not spatial and temporal, on the immediate level it becomes spatial and temporal. So then we're existing in a way that isn't dependent upon the perceptual structure of the evolving human being, and the history and the practice and all of the things that the individual is. That individual is no longer dependent upon that immediate karmic formation. The energy is much larger than that. And then one has the experience of liberation, which is liberation in the flow of creativity, the nirvana in the Brahman, so to speak.
Makes sense, yeah.
Well, it doesn't really make sense, but
the whole interpretation is based on these two.
But to come back to Werner and this this thing, if it is individual, you know, the perception, I believe that in this way we can come to this kind of scientific vision of interpretation, where we can discern it will be not a private thing for you because you will not belong to you anymore. You will not, anyone listening to you, it will be also his, because it will be about him. And when musicians then meet, then it will be a fantastic orchestra of unselfish individuals who just share the beauty of themselves and of the world around them. Isn't it a vision?
Aren't they doing that?
You are joking? I'm sorry, but if it to be integral, it would be like a kind of Auroville in 1,000 years or something. I don't know, some kind of futuristic vision where you have beings that like each other from the first moment on, and not on a single scale of sympathy and antipathy, but on a larger scale of recognizing of the vastity of the other's being and one's own being.
But there is a problem with music. One problem fundamental is when you play, even if you are totally prepared and impersonal instrument, when you play, you also hear it. You listen to what you play. And this listening interferes, because this would be the reaction of that being within you, that enjoy within you, that to whom you play this music. You know? And he will make, he will interfere and will make...
I'm not necessarily, Vladimir.
Right.
In this sense, of negative sense, not necessarily.
And I'm not saying negative. In any sense, there will be his correction immediate because of his hearing. Unless you play totally not for yourself and just as a violin is an instrument and it sounds because you make it sound. If you could be that totally obedient instrument to the music, then you would be that. It would be that pure, but you also hear the sound.
But
Yeah?
isn't there also the idea that it's like in golf as well, that when you get like Tiger Woods, when he says he plays what is considered an almost perfect shot, he doesn't feel anything and he has no memory of it.
Interesting.
It's the movement that he goes through that actually it's only afterwards he sees where the ball goes and he knows what's happened. He has absolutely no, and I'm sure that's it with playing as well in music. You get to a state where you're almost no longer there, and when it's really working well, you disappear.
Yeah. So there are two interests in music. What I defined for myself until now, one is to hear the composition, yeah? To get the composition as the expression of that creation which was made by the composer in the highest sense, yeah, the most impersonal way. And the other is to see how the one who plays music perceives it. What is happening to him? This is Vaishnavic way. Yeah? I am listening to his own his surprises. He will show me that he is surprised by what is happening. And this is when we know of that psychic quality. I would hear his pauses, his breath, his surprise, his enjoyment, and so on. And I'm listening to it at the same time that I listen to the music. I listen to the music in one sense, hear the composition, and in another sense, I see the impression it leaves on this embodied being, on the soul being. First of all, the one who plays, because he will be first impressed by this, and then that impression comes to me, and I read it also. So I read two things.
Yeah, and it seemed to me like when we were listening to when we were listening to the music that was done correctly, where you have this wideness, and then when it was explained, when Ladislav explained it so clearly and explained the differences, when I re-listened to the music again, I was listening for where that wideness was, which for me was almost in the space between the notes. And it was almost like I was being allowed to see or feel something that was beyond the music. The music is one expression, but being able to have that space for the wideness is another expression. And it's that other expression that to me is important. It also made me realize why I hate a lot of classical music when I'm listening to it. It's because they're not doing it properly.
Good point. I switch off most of it because I can't listen to it, and I'm wondering why they go on still.
But have you listened to any of, you must have, Arvo Part?
Yes, but I all the years I haven't heard anything. And
but Arvo, yes, no, Arvo Part spent 10 years. He went away into seclusion for 10 years to try to express and figure out how he could express the soul through music. And there are some masterclasses on YouTube where he describes a bit about how he achieves it now.
I will listen to it because lately I have heard Kramer talking about him, and Gidon Kramer, he was saying that he's no more interested in complicated music. He is interested in simple music. And one other thing struck me because in the agenda, the mother was objecting once to classical composers, and she was saying, but why do you cover, finally you have an inspiration, you have an aspiration, and you cover it with all that notes.
Yeah.
You have orchestra, and only to fill in the places or God knows for what reasons, you just put everything all over notes and it becomes a mess.
You know, I'm relating that to what you said earlier about human beings playing together in harmony and power. Because in the lectures in Oroville, we came to that point of in philosophy of how does the will of beauty and power and truth manifest socially, and you can also ask how does it manifest in music, and is it something simple or is it something very infinitely complex? And whenever great ideas come down to the social level, they tend to be too complicated for for any possibility of expression. So if we are elevating our instrument to that universal force and being, and then we want to express it in relationship to things which are themselves finite. There's a fundamental paradox. The finite and the infinite resist each other, and to overpower that resistance and have the infinite be present in the finite, it seems to require such an extraordinary concentration of force that basically the finite tends to become smaller and smaller. and so the life could become very simple. For example, the social life under that force must become very simple. And perhaps the music also needs to be very simple. But the thing itself that's being expressed is not simple. It's the whole universe. So there's a paradox in between that higher potential of consciousness and this temporal, spatial, structural, evolutionary instrument. It's to overcome that difference is the whole challenge.
Yeah, that's why when we started, I see it now from the point of view of interpretation again, from the point of view of the instrument, from the point of view of doing. That's why we start with these simple lines and with this simple essential stuff, and then it becomes very simple. But if this simplicity, if it gets, for example, the speed with which you move your bow, if it gets a holding in the psychic, in the psychic experience, it shows the emotion what to do. Otherwise, the emotion will just do rubbish with it. So if it becomes finite, and if the emotion is linked to something finite, it becomes very, very difficult, because I am linked to it like this, and the other musician like this, and then we have the divergence, and we have no meeting point. So if no one goes back to this essential stuff, and once this essential stuff is set in place, then we can see that the infinity inside of it. And this infinite and this psychic experience, which shows how it wants the things to happen. But it is true that I don't know why music. It is the most known word, together with harmony, is so lacking. It should be the first one. Musicians should be the first one to bridge these differences, and instead they are the last ones.
but they're in this large, this vast power and beauty of creativity, and when I think that at that level of consciousness, since everything is there, it's more difficult to focus on something that is really very, very simple. There's an overwhelming need to express the whole, and so you make a symphony then. But you know, then there are the Taoists and the Zen Buddhists, and they somehow manage to be satisfied with 17 syllables, and everything is there in the 17 syllables. So to hold that power and beauty in a simple, small, finite context puts a lot of pressure on that small context. I think there's a tendency to expand it, and then you have boom. You approximate the infinite with your sound and your energy, and that's how, you know, inspired musicians have been doing it. But perhaps there's a possibility to bring that vast energy and creativity to a very finite point, without exploding the point. But it's as you point out, it's a big challenge to do that.
But isn't it also up?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
It's also up to us as sort of spirit, trying, you know, in our beingness, to be able to find the spirituality within the piece of music. Because if you listen to Bach or Bach cantatas and so on, it should be easier.
Easier for the listener, or easier for the musician.
Right.
It seems that we are able to perceive the spiritual in things when the power of the spirit is there, and that power is much vaster than the things. And I think Lotso is often speaking about this vertical orientation, which enables the transparently transmit something which is infinite within certain limitations. And if that infinite power is not there, then the infinite doesn't express it. I mean, it can't express in its own little way something which is infinitely vast. So the instrument is making a connection between those two planes, those two dimensions. One is unlimited and the other is limited. So if we want to experience that unlimited vastness, then the instrument has to bear a lot of, an extraordinary pressure within limitations that are themselves quite the opposite of that thing which is expressing itself. And this tension between the infinite and the finite is something that preoccupies someone like Bach. He's really trying to bring those two into a meaningful relationship. But in an evolutionary yoga, it seems that our challenge is concerning the human instrument and how it can become vehicle of that spiritual reality. And it needs to evolve some new capacities and a greater transparency and simplicity that, classically, in the 18th century and the 19th century, that wasn't on the table. And so the great musicians and the great poets and philosophers weren't doing that. They were ascending into another level.
Yeah, I will read next time only, if you allow, Vladimir. Next time from Brahms, what he said about composition, because he says it. He names it what he's actually doing, and about Beethoven also some things which are very interesting, and then we can. That's why they have gone there, I am sure, and they have taken it. They were the scribes of heaven, and they have brought it down and put it into these small dots that we see, and interpretation has not gone that way.
No, if we read what Beethoven was writing in his letters when he was young, it's incredible. It's a yogi of the highest kind who saw already, the face of God, and all the forces came down. You would not believe. We were in this, born in his place of birth where he lived, in his house, and there are all the letters there. And what a handwriting he has! So perfect, you would not believe. It's the most perfect handwriting. It was handwritten letters, Incredible quality of the being. You can read in the thought and form. Of course, this being has to manifest something of that music, definitely. It would be very nice to read some of their letters. Maybe also Gunhild can bring us from, because she lives in Bonn, by the way, and it would be nice to have some of Beethoven's letters and letters to Napoleon, to Napoleon, I think.
Napoleon, yes.
Yeah, also, he was so daring. He was criticizing him to the extent that I can't imagine what anybody would do. Very nice, very fresh and clear and sincere spirit. So it would be nice to have some their testimonies of how they saw their music and Bach also. And what Mother said on Bach and Beethoven would be also very good to have. Maybe not everybody knows about it, but she was comparing their music,
I just want to say something about Bach, which seems to me very transparent and not really so much, maybe some things struggle between the finite and infinite, but rather some kind of inspiration which harmonizes this or comes from the infinite and is expressed in the finite.
Could I ask a practical question?
Yes, we are already over our time. So
yeah, just I wanted to, since you're there, you can't evade the question so easily since you're there.
Okay.
So I didn't get a response from the two of you to my question about the 14th and 15th. So
I didn't get that, Rod.
I was asking Ladislav and Mir if they would be prepared to start sharing compendium of exploration with the public in Oroville beginning on the 14th of January, because I have scheduled with Shradovan the use of the building beginning on the 14th. So, Ladislav, can you say yes or no, please?
Yes. Always, yes.
Yeah, he's always, because he's there. I'm here, I'm not there. I will come, I have to also gather some funds for my ticket. I don't have even money to buy a ticket yet, because Siv went to India. She's in Auroville now, actually. You will meet her there. And all the kind of Christmas and everything, just, exhausted our funds. So when I get in the beginning of this month some funds, I will buy a ticket, and I will come most probably at the end of the month or the second half, 20th, 21st, something like this. I'm planning to come to Auroville. So I will be 1 week late to that program. It's tentatively now like this, yes. So since I don't,
when you come, are you willing?
Yes, I'm willing very much. I'm coming for that.
To present IPK in a kind of systematic way, because other people haven't read it, don't know it, and there needs to be some introduction before we have a seminar. And Ladislav, I really like the presentations that you've been making here. So are you willing to do that at Savitri Bhavan starting on the 14th?
Yes.
Okay. Because I'm just, I've been getting messages and sending messages to Shraddha to try to be sure that that our program can be accommodated. And, they all, at that time of the year, they have a lot of other things going on. But it seems to be possible to go ahead at that time. And I want to put an announcement, you have to put it in the news and notes a week before. So that means next Wednesday. And that's why I was trying to be as calm as possible.
Okay, it has to be on the 14th. There is Nishtha.
That's 14th is Nishtha and me, and then 16th would be you and me, like last year.
Okay, fine. Then 16th.
And then when Vladimir is there, I give one of my slots, and when Werner is there, I give one of my slots, and because I don't need to have two slots in the schedule, but I can fill in. I think in the beginning. Okay.
Very good. We will see you, Werner, in Auroville soon.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, on the 12th. I'll be there on the 12th.
How nice. Very good.
And
okay.
Richard and Julia, are you coming to Auroville this year? Huh?
We haven't made any arrangements yet, but I think we need to know a little bit more.
Oh, you will know when you arrive. You will see everything.
Just go with the flow when you get there.
Go innocently.
Yeah, it's better.
It's quite challenging these days to find a place to stay with there in January and February. It's really necessary. You can be lucky, but it's helpful to plan ahead, like 6 months ahead.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I agree.
Yes.
I think it's probably wise. I know Vladimir was saying that we could stay with him, but I think
that's too imposing.
I think that's kindness and too imposing.
No. It's not. It's just practicality.
If he has this, that would be perfect if he can do that.
Otherwise, of course, it's booked from before. Many people are coming this period.
Yeah.
Right, very nice. So today we didn't have time for Gunhild. We were planning to split the time, but it was taken by this very interesting discussion on music. So it's most probably Gunhild. Would you like to take some part of time next time with lots of little bit reading on Brahms and others who are there? Yeah.
And let's see how much time is there. I can also find some things.
Because we have to plan now next session. Werner was ready to to go ahead with his presentation. He has prepared already 2 of them. It would be
but I'm not in a rush. I can flow with the logical order here, so that's fine with me.
Logical order.
But what we can do, for me, it's I wanted just to mention these letters, not having a discussion on them, just as a final point. And,
it might
then,
be an entry point from big discussion, and yes. Well,
It was a good discussion also.
because Werner is coming soon to Auroville, no?
On the 23rd.
Yes, but we would like to hear him on the.
Exactly. So before we can have him.
All right. Let us say half an hour for you, and 1 hour for you, Werner. Is it okay? Shall we split like this? Next session? Half an hour is enough to discuss, to introduce these statements of great musicians? Is not
No,
enough.
it is just, no. It is just, look, it is just to make a final point. I mean, it is just to read it and finish.
Okay, let us keep it open. Half an hour, 1 hour. So you will have 1 hour, Werner, next time.
Okay, fine.
And half an hour we will finish this point. It's a structure, but how it will happen, then we will see.
But remember that from the 16th, our Saturdays will be taken up in Auroville.
Right. Yeah, we will have to do something else.
So that means
we can shift if we shift, or we can also do something interesting. We can connect people from outside the world to your sessions within. If they have the equipment, we could do it.
I'm trying to arrange that, but it's going very slow in Auroville, you know.
I know. You need a computer PC, put it there, and have internet connection. The rest will be done by us.
Yes, I know. But then we probably will need to use a different space there because they're not making progress in arranging that equipment in our normal space, and so I'm going to have to try to adjust so that we have that access. Not so easy.
Okay.
But we can have a different day for our online meeting.
Also, yes. But what day would be best for you?
Well, Friday or Sunday. Could be Friday or Sunday, I think.
Friday, is it okay? Friday afternoon? Evening Friday?
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
Sunday
I can do that. Yep. I have to go to leave here at 6:30 in the morning to go to Zazen, but I'll while I'm meditating. So.
You have to give up sleeping.
Yeah, I think so.
All right. So,
Yes, everybody.
yes.
Okay, goodbye.
Goodbye, everyone. Thank you for this session. Very beautiful. See you then next time.
Lovely.